My name is David Amston. I get the opportunity to bring the word to you this morning. So glad that you're joining us either live or if you're watching us online instead of being here in person, you're just watching us online. We're thrilled that you're joining in. Here's why we're excited about you joining in is every single week from our online subscribers as well as live views and even salvations and testimonies. It's grown and grown every single week. So we're thrilled that you're tuning in. If you're ever in the Collinsville area, we'd love to have you stop by. That way we can shake a hand and maybe hug a neck. There's 3 people that do it awkward. We'll try to keep them away from you. So for everyone else, here we go. We're going to get in the Word today, but I just need to give you fair warning. Monday morning is when I get to the office. I open up the Bible. This week it's real easy, or this kind of where I'm at right now. It's Wonder Woman or Superman of the Bible. Like who's a woman and who's a man that we're going to talk about, a man that we're going to talk about. Right now we're talking about women, so my stories just got shorter. And I find someone that I want to talk about. And I had this incredible lady. She was a prophetess. She was only one of a few judges in the book of Judges. So all day Monday, I'm just researching her, and I'm putting all the data down. And I got excited, and I was like, well, I wonder why this means this and this means that. And so Tuesday, you just kind of dust it back off, and you start thinking about it. And you start going, what if I said this, and what if I said that story? And then Wednesday, I go, okay, I think I have a decent sermon, but I'll be honest with you. If I think it's bad, I'm pretty sure you'll find it boring. So I wasn't quite done with it yet. Still need some polishing. Thursday, I started going, is this even the right person? I know. You're not the guy having to stand up here to say that. So then Friday, we changed. Whole different person. I had to. Because, well, one, and I hope you're okay with this, I'm someone who's not perfect. Earlier, they amen a few of them. So I was just waiting if you were going to bury me too. But I'm not perfect, and I'm going through processes. And I found myself saying a prayer that I think a lot of us pray, but we don't admit it. And here's what my prayer sounded like. Dear God, change me without actually changing anything about me. Am I the only one that says that prayer? Thank you. I appreciate your honesty. One person, just come stand with me the rest of the service. It'll help. So, there is something about saying, God, change me. But when I say change me, I'm really happy with my life right now. I know that I have some flaws, and I know I could be a better communicator, and I know my marriage could be better, and I know my relationships could be healthier. But the fact is, if I actually had to change, that means my life would be disrupted, and I don't really want my life to be disrupted. I want my life to be easy for me. Currently, it's easy for me because I'm me, and I'm living my life. But the fact is, it's not easy for everybody else around me, and I have sin issues I need to deal with. So God, please change me without actually changing a thing. Am I the only one that says that prayer? You chickens. I'll say it out loud. One of the things he's changing me is not to call you chickens, but it's not there yet, so I'm still through my redemption process. Deal with it. So I'm trying to figure out, God, where I'm at with this process, and this other lady wasn't speaking to me, but this individual in 2 Kings that we're going to read about, a Shunammite woman, really spoke a lot to me. So I decided to shift. I decided to do it. So you don't have a week's worth of polishing. You got a couple hours. So I say we just get in it and see what comes out, which is always a scary thing around here. So 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 8 through 16, one day Elisha. So now who's Elisha? Elisha is a guy known as a prophet. Okay, so now what's a prophet? Okay, in the Old Testament and in the old days, God would speak from heaven, but there wasn't like this written Bible that we have now. But God would speak from heaven, but really no one was listening. He should have had this one specific nation paying attention. They weren't. And so he would specifically talk to a prophet or prophetess, male and female. And then the prophet or prophetess would come to the nation of Israel and say this, God's speaking, and here's what he's saying. So ultimately, we still believe that God speaks today, and God can speak to you and through you to other people. So one day Elisha, and you're going, wait, Elisha, I thought his name was Elijah. How many have ever heard? Well, there's an Elijah and Elisha, and why we didn't name them Earl and Fred is beyond me. But so Elijah was here for a while, but eventually Elijah, you're just going to think I'm an idiot, but here it comes. Elijah jumped out of here while Elisha stayed behind. In a minute, when I talk about IQ, you're going to really love me for that. But yes, so Elisha is stayed behind. Elijah, the guy who taught him, jumped out of here. So now Elijah, who's a voice piece for God, is walking around. And Elisha went to Shunem. And he went to a well-to-do woman that was there. So this woman, she's rich. Another lady, another translation just says wise. And so, but it actually means that she's wealthy. And she actually urged him to stay for a meal. So whenever he being Elisha, came by, he would stop there to eat at her house. So she, being the woman of Shunem, said to her husband, I know, and another translation says this, I perceive this guy. Like, I don't know him personally. I haven't joined his mailing list yet. I'm not a partner to his ministry. But listen, I've been talking with him, and I perceive this man, and to be this, to be a man of God who often comes our way. He's a holy man of God. So let's do this. Let's make a small room on the roof, put in it a bed, a table, a chair, a lamp for him. Then he can stay there whenever he comes. So now on one of these trips through, Elisha came down. He went up to his room and he laid down there. And he said to his servant, so we're going to add a new person to our conversation, Gaza, he said to his servant Gaza, he said, call the Shunammite. So the servant, being he, called to her being the Shunammite. Is everyone following this so far? There's a lot of he's and they's and them. So now the servant called to the woman of the house, and she stood there, and Elisha said to her, tell her, being servant, and you need to tell her this, why have you gone through this trouble for us? Now, what can be done for you? Can we speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army? And she replied this, I have a home among my own people. Don't worry, we'll circle back to really kind of delve into this in a minute. So all of a sudden she leaves. Elijah's still there talking to his servant. And Elijah says to his servant, what can be done for her? And Gaza said, she has no son. Her husband is old. And I just find this interesting, and this is the reason we love community. It's one of the things we value here at the church. Sometimes the people around you are in greater touch with your need than you are. What can be done for you? I'm good. Just so you know, if you on a regular basis say this to friends and family, I'm good. You need to perk up. Because I'm telling you, you have a defense mechanism kicking in every time. And we're going to get into this, but maybe you should ask the loved ones around you, where's my deficiency at? Because somewhere along the line, you're going to have one. And it happened that this servant, so Elijah said, call her again, like bring her back a second time. But it was interesting because the second time she came back, she stood in the doorway. Okay, so now I've invited the man of God, and I've created a house for the man of God, but am I really ready to touch God? So there's this little distance that happened there. And he said, about this time next year, you will hold a son in your arms. And the response was, no, Lord. Please, man of God, do not mislead your servant. So here's the thing. You look at it and you go, wait a second. She perceived him to be a man of God, created a place for him to stay, but yet when he's now going to give her a promise, her first response is no. May I just say, I get it. Because I've said this prayer. Dear Jesus, please change me without actually ever changing anything. So guess what I just said to him? Nope. Like, I love the thought of it, but the reality is the thought of actually getting it means it changes my life and disturbs my everyday mechanisms the way I have it set up now. So I hate to say yes to you, because the moment I say yes to you, I'm going to have to either embrace the thing that you're about to give to me, or I'm going to once again live with the disappointment that it didn't come through for me. Because it's somewhere along the line, it says he was old in age, and if you don't understand how that works, Pastor Brent would love to answer that for you. Track him down, he'll explain how all that works. But for me, here's what I'm going to say, is it wasn't happening. But there's somewhere along the line that this woman, especially in this time, in this age, that it was important for the woman to give a son to her husband. But now, when it says, what can I do for you? Her answer is, I'm good. There's something off there. So here's what I love about this story. So I'm just going to kind of take you through the process that I walked through in getting to where we are. This is a great story because we're talking about a rich woman. But right before this, we actually talked about a poor woman. There was a woman about to starve to death. She had just enough oil to make one more cupcake, to be able to live just a little bit longer. And Elisha said, hey, just give me that oil and start bringing me vats. And he starts pouring out of this little cup. He starts pouring into a 5-gallon bucket and then a 10-gallon bucket. And she's going to her neighbor's house getting other vats, and he keeps pouring. And she runs down to Sam's and buys a 5-piece Tupperware. And it always looks bigger when you buy it, but then you get it home and the meatloaf still doesn't fit. But she got it there, and he's just pouring away. And now she has plenty of oil. Here's what I love. In this story, you have a rich woman and a poor woman backing up to each other. And both of them, the one thing we find in both of them is they both have a deficiency. But I think in our American mindset, if you're poor, we need to do outreach to you. If you're rich, you're doing okay. Because I've heard of a lot of outreaches to the inner city and to the projects. I haven't yet found someone doing an outreach to Clayton, Missouri. But may I just say, someone in your life who's fiscally doing well has no bearing if they're spiritually doing whole. So I love this right here, because right here in this place, we actually may find that the rich woman is less in touch with her need than the poor woman. And so now he comes in and she says this, I perceive you to be a man. And we need to know our perception of something is the ability to receive or not. I perceive you to be a man of God, which means since I think of you this way, I'm open to get from you. But if you're not even open to this being a man of God, if you're not open to God being real, if you're not open to the church, if you're not open to a store that is probably primarily online, and by the way, this is completely fictional because I wouldn't name a company and then open ourselves to a lawsuit. But let's say there's a company online that you can go ahead and put credit card information, all your data, and if there's something you want to buy, it's a single click away. Not only is it a single click away, it can be delivered the next day before noon. For instance, completely fictional. And you believe, right, your perception that they will deliver what they deliver. And they have a good perception, but then you find out the CEO of the company is a mass murderer. Does your perception of that company change at all? Of course it does. Let's make it real because this is real life. You believe that in every church, they can help deliver the word of God. So you come to a church and you go and you go and you get and you get and you get. Then you find out the pastor is actually a sinner. He embezzled money, he has an affair, he does something like that. Do you keep coming back to the same church going, hey, I can still receive the same God you preached last Sunday, even though I know the reality of who you are this Sunday? And like right now you guys are going, is he embezzling money? I'm not smart enough. I got to be honest. And I've seen my wife and other options, like I'm sticking with her. So no, like we're good here. So, but here's the thing. The reality is the only thing that changed from last week to this week is our perception. So I'm not receiving from God. Is that God's problem or your perception? You know what I mean? Change isn't happening. I'm not sure that's his fault. Like God is a God that never changes, but yet in never changing, he's consistently new. I don't know. I'm going with it though. But here's the thing. Our perception of can we change, will we change, is based on what we perceive, not what he projects. So now you have a woman who's perceiving him. And then I love this. In verse 10, and again, I'm just kind of processing you through the process I went through to get here. Because I found it very interesting. A well-to-do woman ends up liking Elisha so much that they invited Pastor David to do a guest ministry trip. Guest ministry, I went to another church, and I stayed at these people's houses. Had some chicken wings with them. We end up ending off. They invited me back 3 months later to preach at the church again. When I go back, this family loved me so much they did an add-on to the house. I'm going to throw this out. They got money. Like, you liked me so much, you made a room for me. Like, I can understand you liking me enough that you bought a new pair of bed sheets so that I can sleep on the one bed that you have for me. And that you got rid of the feather pillow and brought in a good pillow for me to sleep on. Because if you're sleeping on a feather pillow, it's wrong. We were never meant to sleep on something that would poke us in the back of the head. You know what you're supposed to sleep on is fluffy cotton. And then when it breaks down enough, it moves from your head to your arm. And if it breaks down even more, it moves from your arm to your leg. This is three-phase system in order to move through your pillow system. I'm back on the message. I apologize about that. I'm just letting you know I sleep with 9 pillows, and it's a process. There's a process that we go through because you love me enough to get me the fluffy one underneath my head for a good lumbar support. I appreciate it. But to add an entire room on, come on. But here's what I thought interesting. So not only do they do a room addition for him, they give us the list of stuff they put in the room. Like, we did a 412 pitch roof with 3.5-inch base trim. It's like, God, why did you give that data? We did a bed, and we did a table, and we did a chair, and we did a lamp, and I thought that was awfully specific. And so this may sound weird if you're not a prayer, but this is what I did. I'm like, God, what is this? Because I tried to look up in commentaries, and no one had an opinion on this. But honestly, here's what I felt like God said to me in this. And if it's for you, take it. If not, let it go. But the first thing it was, we put a bed in there. So if she perceives this to be a man of God and she wants to connect with God, where's she finding her rest? So in the house that you're created for God, do you find rest with him? If there's a place in your life where you're at unrest, your mind never stops racing, your heart doesn't stop beating, you constantly feel like you're at warfare somewhere, I'm going to throw out, maybe it is you haven't made a bed for him there yet. Because in the place that we make room for God, we should find rest there. And then we have a table. What are you consuming? I know what we do around my kitchen table. We consume. Unless you're a 2-year-old, you consume and it drops and it falls to the ground. But other than that, most of the time we're consuming. And I had a great interaction with my kids this past week. How many remember the old movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Right? Okay, so it came up on Hulu. And I'm like, oh, hey, kids, this is maybe a movie that we could watch, Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But I thought to myself, I'm just going to preview. We normally preview first, just what it is. So the kids, later that night, next day or something, I turned on Who Framed Roger Rabbit. The first 4 minutes is truly a cartoon. Like, I'm kind of chuckling and going, oh, man, they're going to love this. They're going to love it. But then the very first word out of the first cartoon's mouth is what I would consider a word we don't use. And then the next time he showed up on the screen, 90 seconds later, he used a different word, similar to what we wouldn't use. And I went, oh, my gosh, my parents let me watch this? Look at me right here. Like, doesn't matter. Like, good night. Like, they didn't even protect me as a child. So I did that with my kids. Don't worry. So it's all right. Camera, dial in. You don't need to be far out here. So the next day, I said to the kids, I go, hey, I apologize, And by the way, if you use those words, I'm not judging you. I'm just choosing that in our communication, there's just words we don't think we need to use. If we need to demonstrate power, I don't think I need to drop an F-bomb. I think I can be more creative than that. So there are words that I just don't think glorify God. So these are the ones. And I said to the kids, here's why we're not watching it. And my 5-year-old, Silas, goes, Dad, I won't repeat them. Oh, you've come to the negotiating table, have you? And I actually said back to him, I go, I know you won't because I won't let you consume them. Because at some point, whatever table we're at consuming all the time is what we're going to end up spitting back out. Because I said to my kids, I said, could you imagine on stage if I said this? And my son's eyes, Judah's eyes got real big. I go, but the reason I'm not too worried about it is because during the day, I don't use those words. So if I had a habit of it, I'd have to be trying to break a habit live right here in person. But I'm not consuming that on a regular basis. And then I would say this, the people I hang out with on a regular basis, I'm not talking about the people that I'm trying to minister to, that I'm reaching out to. I'm talking on a regular basis, the people who I sit in chairs with and have company with. Those aren't the people who use that. Actually, the reason I'm trying to sit in these chairs around some of you on a regular basis, I view you as better than me, and I want to become a better person. So that's the company that I'm keeping. But then as I look to my future, the lamp, where do I see my future? Is it in God? Is it freer than I am right now? Is it with more hope than I'm currently having in my life? Is it with dreams that are bigger than what I can imagine or dream that could only happen because of God? I would say that I find rest in him. I want to consume him. I want to sit and have counsel with him. But then I also want to have a future with him. So in your life, my question for you is, have you made a room for God yet? Or was God the thing you said yes to Sunday mornings starting at 10:45? And you'll give him this amount of time, and hopefully you get enough. Hopefully pastor did enough prep and didn't start on Friday morning. And hopefully you get enough from the pastor to get you through till next Sunday. I would say this should be the culmination of your week, not the lifeline of your week. And so then it goes on, and Elijah said, listen, I'm calling you to me again because I need to give to you. Because you have blessed me, one of the things that Elisha was very aware of is our faith is reciprocal. He wasn't there just to take and a take and a take and a take, because if you take and you take and you take and take, eventually you forget that we're supposed to be living streams. Well, the stream doesn't get dammed up. It's got to pour out. So what he said to her is, I appreciate you giving to me freely, and you understand that I know you didn't expect anything in return, but because you gave to me freely, I'm now going to freely give back to you, because if not, I break a biblical principle that ends up being detrimental to me. So he's saying to her, I need to give to you. What can I do to give to you? And then she says this, I'm good. He goes, hang on, no, you guys missed it. I'll go to the king for you. What authority do you need? What riches do you need? What power do you need? Can't think of a single thing. He goes, let me give this another run. I'm going to go to the head of the army. Where do you need someone to protect you? Where do you need someone to cover you? Where do you need someone to honor you? Yeah, nothing comes to mind. And that's when he goes, no. You're either disillusional or dysfunctional, but you're one of the two. By the way, this is a word for all of us today. You're disillusional or you're dysfunctional. Because all of us, you ready? I'll let you say amen to this. You're dysfunctional. Somewhere in life, can we just kind of put it how it is? We are jacked up. There is something wrong with our thinking. I love my mom and dad, but they couldn't have done it perfect because I'm not perfect. And no matter how much good they try to do, half of it as kids, we think we know better, so we reject it. And then we take the half they did give to us and we go, why didn't they give us more? For those watching online, they're not mic'd, so I will tell you what they said. I'm the best son. Okay, so, but in that what happens, like at some point we all live with dysfunctions, then we take our dysfunctions, move into a relationship because we think our wife, our husband, our boyfriend, our girlfriend will shore up the places that we weak, and what we end up doing is we just be codependent. And then if you still are looking at me going, man, I don't get it, we have something to say to you. You are disillusioned. You are messed up. You are flawed. You aren't perfect. And every time you pray, your prayer sounds like this: God, I'm willing to let you change something, but I can't imagine what it is. And that's as bad as my prayer of, God, please change something, without actually changing anything. Right? I mean, do you get it? Like, I know this is dirty. I know this is wrong. Oh, but it feels so right. And so now he's saying to her, he goes, listen, I need to tell you, I've been searching for you. I've been asking friends, and I found where your dysfunction is. I found where you're disillusioned at, and I'm telling you now that I'm going to give you a child. And I bet now you understand why she said what she said, if you've been following my thought process at all, when she goes, no. Because there was a time inside of me that I wanted to start this, but it didn't happen, so I ended it. And Elisha, I'm saying this, no, don't start this again. Elisha, what I'm trying to tell you is, don't make me want again. Because when I was a little girl, I dreamed of a man taking care of me, and not only did I get that dream, I got a rich man. And I got to walk down an aisle, and my friends were there, maids of honors were there. But then in that, there was one thing I wanted to do for my husband. I wanted to give him a child that he could be proud of. I've never been able to have it, but that want was so painful, I decided to put that want aside rather than living with the need. So when you just say, I'm going to have a kid again, I'm saying this: please don't confront me again with a dream that I've already been disappointed in. How many have a hope in your life, a dream in your life, a vision in your life, and in your mind it is dead? Your womb is empty. And now all of a sudden someone's going to come up here and tell you, dream again. And you're just going to look back and go, no, because it was too painful the first time when I kept coming up barren. When I kept coming up with my arms empty. Don't let me think about the possibilities again. And that's what he's looking at her. He goes, listen, I know that you've said no, but I want to tell you this. All you've done is adjusted to your barrenness. But I haven't been called here for you to adjust to your barrenness. I'm telling you there's a way to live without your dysfunction. So can you see why she would say no? Because here's what I wanted. I wanted God to be present. I wanted to hang out with him. I wanted to be known as his friend. But I didn't want him to disrupt my life. By the way, I get it. Because every time I go, God, this is an ugly place in me. And most society doesn't know about it. And truth be told, if you found out about it, you go, really, that's it? But I know it grieves you, Lord. Please change it. Without actually changing a thing. You know why? Because mentally I know that. Why? Because I have something known as an IQ. If you don't have an IQ, raise your hand. It'll just help us identify you. Yeah. We got a special spot here for you. So, intellectual quotient, right? It's your ability to know. It's ability to, some people have higher IQs because they have the ability to retain more information, process information, collect data, know data. And I personally think I do okay until I talk to my wife, and then I can't remember anything. Like my wife at times have said to me, honey, there's something wrong with you. And that wasn't the point. You guys shouldn't have laughed then. You mistimed your joke really bad, your laughter on that one. No, because there's times where I will look back and she'll like, do you remember when we did this when we were newly married? I'm like, are you sure you were married to me? And then she reminds me, I've only been married to her and she's only been married to me. So yeah, like it had to be this relationship. And I look at pictures when I was a kid. One of the most fond memories that we have as a family to always talk about was a birthday I had in Florida when I was a kid, and there was a Pac-Man cake. The only thing I remember is everyone else's story and the one picture about the Pac-Man cake. I don't remember the past. I don't live in the past. My wife has even said this, how do you possibly remember the Bible? Because I seem to forget everything. And honestly, I can't remember why I can't remember the Bible, but I can. So, but some people just have that higher IQ. Do you know those people where they're like, hey, do you remember in 11th grade we played a basketball game at this place and here was the score and here's what happened? No, I have a future. I'm living for something else. What do you, like that's like, I don't get it, but their IQ, they're able to have that mental thing to process. And by the way, all of us have a certain level of IQ. But the problem is when we try to live beyond our IQ is when we end up starting to look foolish. You got to know what you know and live within those means. Because if you sit here and go, well, you know what, if you gave me $1 million, I could always all of a sudden be happy. Man, you're in $20,000 worth of debt at $40,000. You don't know how to manage debt at that level. Like, you have to at least be aware of what you know. And so our IQ's at a certain level, but then we have something interesting. And by the way, I do need to give credit where credit is due. T.D. Jakes and a guy named Dr. Phil. You ever heard of good-looking bald men? Like, yeah, okay. So there was a conversation they were having on one of T.D. Jakes' TV shows, that got me thinking about this. Because they said something I wasn't aware of. Because I knew IQ, and have you ever heard of EQ? Emotional quota. So some of us have a certain level of emotions that we can handle and understand the same way that our intellect is. And so the thing about emotional quota is you usually don't know what someone else has till you get in it with them. Because as men, like, you look around and you have enough IQ to see a pretty girl and you're like, hey, 34, 26, 34, I need to get in a relationship with you. And so you get into a relationship with her and all of a sudden you get married and then you take her home and then you realize she's crazy. Why? Because she has a very low EQ. She's crying, but she can't tell you why. She's angry, but she can't verbalize it. And you realize, man, why can't you just say these things? And that's because she has a very low EQ, this emotional quota. And I know women right now, you're looking at me, judging me because you think I'm attacking you. Don't worry, I'm going to do the guys next. Because now a woman ends up marrying a guy, goes home with him, and he ends up on his next job. And he keeps telling you stories of, well, you won't believe the environment, you won't know that. But here's what you really married. You married a mama's boy. He never grew up. His emotions are very low. And so, are we done yet? No, let's keep going. So now, you can look at all these different places in a person's life, both male and female, and you don't know who you married till you get involved with them. And there are some people with a very high IQ, so they know the job they're supposed to do till you put them in the work environment. Then their EQ, their emotional kicks in, and you realize they don't know how to work with the world around them. Because you have to have a proper balance. Here's the thing, employers, here's what we do. We hire on someone's IQ, but we have to live with their EQ. And you know this because every time there's a situation, they walk into your office and it's 20 minutes of drama for them to process you through it. And you're looking at them going, can't we get to the end of it? But their emotions are that of a child, not as an adult. And so the woman's at home barking at his man, telling him to do more. Little does she know he's waiting on her to be the mother that raised him poorly. Right? Because if you think about it, our EQ isn't just an intellectual thing, it's also an environment thing. So if she's like, man, at our house, we just let the emotions fly. You say what you want, when you want to say it. We live it at 10. This is how mama did it. Well, mom was wrong too. Well, my dad, he just sat on the couch. He worked all day. He was the man of the house. You can have a beer. You can watch your TV. Mom raised the children. I'm just going to let you know, I think you have a dwarf sense of your EQ also. So have I properly offended both men and women yet? Because if not, I can circle back to make sure you're with me on this one. But we both live with our IQ and our EQ, and a healthy person has a proper balance between the two. An unhealthy person is someone with high IQ, low EQ, or vice versa, because now you're great in society, but you don't know what you're doing, or you know what you're doing, and you don't know how to interact with the world around you. And don't worry, I do know where I'm going with this, because this is where a new one got thrown out to me. AQ. How many have ever heard of AQ? Adaptability quotient. Some people call it having to deal with adversaries, but it's your ability to adapt to new situations. And so some people, and I guess the best way to say it is my wife and I, we're two different levels when it comes to our AQ. Because for me, I can run in the house and go, hey, let's load up the 4 kids. I have a random idea. Let's go attack it. And my wife immediately goes, no. Why? Because she just picked them up from school. We have soccer practice in an hour and a half. We need to get homework done in order to get dinner done, in order to get them to soccer, to get them home to have a snack, to take a shower, to put them in bed, because the schedule's complete already. And I'm like, who cares about a schedule? I have a random idea. Let's run with it. Now, I know that if it's a good enough idea, she has a certain amount of time where she can actually adapt to the new. But you know, there's actually some people that can't ever adapt. And life is perfect unless you change life. Now, all of a sudden, you have a blow up. And then you really find out where their emotional quota is, because they're going to do a breakdown on you. But it kind of makes sense if you think, when it comes to your AQ determines how far you'll actually go in life. Because I personally think, I just read a story about a woman who had a very high IQ. She was wealthy. She had money. She had influence. But then she also had a very high EQ. Elisha's coming through, and I have the ability to give. I have ability to make a house for you. I have ability to provide a place that you can't provide for yourself. So she's emotionally aware that she doesn't have to hold on and be dependent on herself. But then he comes along and goes, how's your AQ doing? Are you willing to adapt in order to find God? She goes, nope. And personally, as I look at it, I get it. Because the moment you say yes, it now disrupts. See, here's the interesting thing about this woman. So far, you go, hey, wait, I thought she was a Wonder Woman. Well, she is, but we're just looking at her origin story at this point. Because we're going to end up finding out who she becomes, but you won't appreciate who she becomes till you know where she came from. And she came from the same prayer I think you and I have both been praying for a while now. Dear God, change me without actually ever changing me. But now she's put into a position where the adaptability quotient that she lives in life is going to be challenged. And so for you, can you grow your IQ? Not probably. I wanted to read if you could, but I never got around to it, so that was a joke. When it comes to your emotional, absolutely. Go through counseling, get coaches, you can grow in there. But actually, adaptability is dependent on 2 things. 1, your willingness. 2, an outside goal. So, you know, I'm overweight, I'm not feeling good, I want to play with my kids more often. You know what? Internally, I want to make a change. I'm just going to lose weight. I go to a doctor and he goes, hey, if you don't lose weight, you're going to have a heart attack at any day. Boy, this outside influence is just as good as my internal drive, right? Man, I'd love to quit smoking. It's a waste of money. So, by the way, this is our examples. I know earlier I said about a pastor messing up, and it's not this one. But so, like, I'm smoking. I love to give up smoking. I love to save money. I go to the doctor. He goes, hey, you got a spot on your lung. You should really quit smoking. See, we can adapt. The question is, do we have an internal drive enough to adapt, or an external reason to adapt? And I think, external or internal, if we put ourselves in a place where we find our rest in God, We consume from God. We sit with like-minded people knowing about God, but then put our future in him. I think he'll actually position us to a place where we desire for that change. So here's what ends up happening. This woman, a year later, has a baby. So guess what? She adapted. She became our superwoman. She became our Wonder Woman. She has her superpowers now. She has a child. And if you're a woman, you have a child, you have superpowers. Why? Because I've had kids alone without my wife, and oh man, they are powerful. So she now has her superpower. She has kids, and her son one day goes out to the field in order to work with his dad. While out at the field with his dad, he looks at his dad and he goes, my head. Dad goes, take him back home. Something's wrong. He goes back home, and the son dies. Wait a second, God, I thought you gave me a dream to own. Now you're taking it from me? I thought you gave me a hope to move for. Now you've changed the goal line? What are we doing here? And the dad is sitting in the house with his son just in his lap. The mom comes in and goes, what are you doing? Our son is dead. And mom picks him up. I love it. See, the difference between mom and dad is mom fought to get something. If you fight to get something, you'll fight to keep it. Dad just had a son in his lap because, let's be honest, guys, don't do much to get this. Like, he didn't have this conversation with Elisha. He didn't go through this process. He didn't create a home. He was just a guy sitting there. So he's like, oh, I have a lost son. She picks him up, takes his son back, puts him in Elisha's bed, heads out. I love it. In the story, she passes Elisha's servant. And Elisha's servant, God, has said this, hey, is everything all right? And her answer this time, yep. Wait, I thought you were a woman of no. You are a woman of no until you understand the transforming power of Jesus Christ. You're a woman of no when you realize dreams can come true if you put yourself in that place. You're a woman of no when you continue to live in the disillusional dysfunction that you're currently living in. But the moment you realize and you say this, my superpower is saying that I have a need, but by me expressing my need, it releases your glory. Now all of a sudden she's walking, servant passes her and goes, is everything all right? And she goes, yep. Gets right into Elijah and goes, hi, I need you. Because originally you helped me find God, so I'm confident God's presence will still be here. And I love that she put him on the bed. Because my guess is this entire time, she found rest in God. It doesn't say that she was crying. It doesn't say that she was stressing. It doesn't say that her EQ was lowering as the hours went by. She just went to Elijah and said, I need you back home. Elijah goes, I'll send my staff and that'll be a touch. She goes, you don't understand. I need the God that I came face to face with, that I wanted to make a home with. Sometimes in our darkest place, it's not about your pastor sending you a prayer. It's not about a scripture that you downloaded online. Sometimes it needs to be that face-to-face God that you met with in your home to say, I want to find rest with you. And Elisha went back there, laid on the boy, breathed on the boy sneezed 7 times and gets back up. And the mom then now went, okay, I can live with this. Because once you get free of the dysfunction that you were living in, you will never want to go back to living in that captivity. So she moved forward with her life. So today, I don't know where you're at in your process. I don't know where you're at with your dreams, your hopes, your desires. We could break this down in a few areas. One, how's your house doing? Do you consume God, rest with God, talk about God, and have a future in God? So that's one group of you to be able to kind of process that and think about that. Here's one for you. If I said to you right now, the dream that was in your heart that you felt that you needed to learn to live without, I'm going to bring it back to life today. It's the first thing you would say is, nope. If so, I want to pray. Not just for an IQ or EQ, but your AQ, your ability to adapt with God changes. But then the third, which probably here at the church we'd find most important is, have you even created a spot to meet with God? Maybe you're here this morning because a friend brought you. Possibly you stopped by because you've been watching online and you've been wanting to check us out live. Maybe you drove by, saw a sign and went, we had a Guy here talking to me earlier, he didn't realize we were in his backyard for all these years, and he finally found us. So I don't know why you're here today, but I think you're here for me to tell you this, that Jesus wants to not only reside with you, but he wants to give you the dreams that you thought you missed out on, the passions that you've given up. But it's up to you to actually say, yes, I want to live with him. I want to know him. But in order for me to ask you that very serious question, could I ask everyone, just close your eyes, bow your head, separate yourself from everyone around you. And right now your heart is beating, your mind is racing, and you feel like I'm talking to just you. I am. Why? Because I'm not a voice piece of myself. I actually believe, like I explained the prophet earlier, I believe I'm a voice piece of the Holy Spirit, of God. And God can be speaking to you personally right now. You've heard an entire sermon, you've heard an entire talk, and the only thing you keep thinking about is, why is my heart beating like this? And why do I want what I don't know what they're talking about? If you're here this morning and that is you, and if you would want to know Jesus Christ as your personal Lord and Savior, I'm going to ask you to do one very simple act. Just raise your hand in the air so that we can see that you're going, yes, I want to see that. I see that hand right there. I want to invite you just to raise your hand to say yes to God and what he's going to do in your life. If you're watching online right now, same invitation goes out to you. Please don't let this moment pass you by thinking you need to think about it a little bit more. You need to ask a few more friends about it. You know in your heart right now, this invitation is for you as much as anybody else around the world. And since we had hands go up and I'm confident people responding online, could we all say this today? Dear God, feel free to change me by changing me. I allow my adaptability to grow this day. And I embrace the change you want to bring. Forgive me of my sins. Become Lord of my life. And today, I choose to be a follower of Jesus Christ. God, I want to thank you for every hand that came up. I want to bless every person who's been watching online. But also now, God, Holy Spirit, we just ask for those of us that have been praying the prayer, please change me without actually changing anything. God, I pray that we have such a radical shift in our life today that we embrace any and all changes that you're going to bring our way. I pray for those of us that have had dreams in our life that we feel like they are dead and gone. I pray for you to breathe upon them once again and bring life into them. I pray for the desires that we chose to begin living without. I pray for our womb to once again become full. I pray for this child, if we could call it that, the child of education or of a business or of a spouse or of a child, an invention. God, I pray for that child to begin growing inside of us right now. And we can't live the same because, God, we feel the difference. I pray for all of us who have just added you into our life as a passerby. God, I pray that we now make a home for you to live in. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray this. Amen. Amen. Could we put our hands together and celebrate with those that have made a decision today? So the next logical question is, what do I do now? I said yes to Jesus. Well, it's real simple. In just a moment, we're going to continue our worship. Jeanette's going to help us in continuing our worship with the giving of our tithes and offerings. But for those of you that just, what do I do next? Right in the back, we have actually a booth called Next Steps. Roy's back there. Roy's a lonely fella that sits back there Sunday in and Sunday out. Can everyone do this? Hi, Roy. Can you say, we validate you, Roy? Just so you know, I want to keep going to make it as awkward for him as possible. But I do that because I don't want you to feel awkward. When you go back there, that is Roy. Roy wants to help you answer questions about God. What do you do next? What's the next step? There's something called water baptisms. And what about reading the Bible and how do I do that? Roy's back there with just the most practical steps you'll ever know. So I want to invite you to stop back there and say hi to Roy, and he'll help you take the next step in your growing relationship with Jesus Christ. Thank you so much for being with us today.